Have you ever felt like you had to shrink just to be loved? Like your feelings were too much, or your voice didn't matter? You're not alone. Too many survivors of emotional abuse carry silent wounds and invisible scars shaped by manipulation, guilt, and fear. But what if healing wasn't about forgetting? What if it was about protecting what is left of you and rebuilding what was stolen or lost? This is Lilian's story. It's fictional, but it's real for so many. A journey from confusion to clarity. From survival to self-protection. So find a quiet space. Let this story hold your hand for the next few minutes. And remember, your peace is not a luxury. It is your right. You've carried the pain long enough. Now it's time to protect your peace. There comes a moment in every survivor's life when silence becomes heavier than the pain. When pretending everything is fine becomes more exhausting than facing the truth. This story isn't just about pain, it's about protection. It's about the quiet strength that survivors carry and the deep wisdom they learn along the way. It's for anyone who's ever had to rebuild not just their life, but their heart. Tonight, we follow the journey of Lilian, a woman whose spirit was slowly dimmed by the very person who claimed to love her. But this isn't just her story. It's also yours. Because healing may look different for everyone. But emotional safety, that sacred inner sanctuary, we all deserve that. Lilian used to think that love meant endurance. That if she just held on a little longer, he would come around. She made excuses for the yelling, the silence, the blame, saying, "He is tired. He is hurting. He doesn't mean it." But when you start apologizing for your own breathing, when your laughter dies in your throat because it might sound wrong, then you'll realize you're not leaving. It was the night he accused her of cheating because she smiled at the waiter. Lilian remembered holding her breath as his voice rose. Not out of fear for her safety, but because she didn't want to make it worse. She wondered, how did she become so small? The next morning, she looked in the mirror and saw someone she didn't recognize. Her eyes weren't tired, but they were hollow. That was the day Lilian stopped saying, "He didn't mean it." And she started asking, what exactly do I mean to myself? Who am I? For many survivors, the breaking point doesn't look like a dramatic scene, it is quiet. It's a whisper of truth that refuses to be silenced. And it's in that moment that the journey to emotional protection begins. Before survivors can protect themselves emotionally, they must first recognize what their emotional needs actually are. And that's often the hardest part. Years of emotional neglect or abuse usually makes a person ignore their own feelings to silence their own voice. So let's pause and ask. What do you need to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally? What do you need to feel seen, heard, respected? After much thinking, Lilian agreed that she just needed peace. But it was more than that. She needed to stop feeling like a burden. She needed to be allowed to cry and not be mocked. She needed to say no without punishment. She needed to exist without guilt. Recognizing your emotional needs is the first step toward reclaiming your inner world, that is your true self that has been subdued for so long. It is how you begin to rebuild the bridge between your heart and your voice. You don't need permission to feel. And you're not weak for wanting kindness. Now let's return to Lilian's journey. The road to emotional safety is not paved with just realizations. It's filled with struggle, with resistance, and sometimes with relapses. The inner war was when Lilian began navigating the conflicting emotions that followed the decision to emotionally separate herself from her abuser. Leaving didn't end the pain. If anything, it turned the volume up on everything she had been trying not to hear. She missed him. Or maybe she missed the idea of him, the version of him that she created in her head just to survive. There were good days. But good days do not cancel out control, especially in adult relationship. Some mornings she would wake up and wonder if she made it all up. Maybe it was her fault, or maybe she was too sensitive, too emotional, too needy. This is the inner war most survivors face. The longing to go back simply because back is familiar. And the ache of moving forward because healing is unfamiliar territory. Lilian remembered standing in the kitchen one evening, holding her phone, staring at his number. All she wanted was to hear something soft from him. Something kind. But then she remembered that kindness is not supposed to be scarce behind closed doors, only to be reserved for public show. It's also not a gift you earn through pain. It takes courage to choose yourself and your recovery in that moment of trembling hesitation between going back and choosing yourself. Lilian said out loud to herself, "I'm not crazy. I'm not broken. I only believed someone who told me I didn't deserve better. But I do. I deserve better." Lilian began to reclaim her boundaries, which means that she began setting emotional limits just to protect her well-being. Because after the chaos comes clarity. And one of the clearest signs of emotional growth is this. You'll begin to set boundaries not to control others, but to protect yourself. Lilian used to think setting boundaries meant being selfish. But now she knows that it means choosing peace over pleasing others. It means choosing truth over silence. It means saying, "This hurts me, and I won't allow it anymore." Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks that you control. They don't shut people out, they guide people on how to treat you. And when you start setting boundaries, too, things will happen. The wrong people will get uncomfortable. And the right people will respect you even more. When Lilian stopped explaining her pain. When she stopped begging for basic kindness. She clearly saw who was really willing to meet her in love and who was only there to be obeyed. To every survivor of abuse or trauma that is listening, reclaim your space. Reclaim your right to say no. To pause, to walk away, and to protect your peace. Because boundaries do not harm you nor harden you, instead they protect you and make you whole. Lilian began to find strength in her solitude and quietly rebuilt her sense of self-worth from the inside out. Naturally, healing wasn't loud or noisy for Lilian. It didn't happen in dramatic moments or with grand declarations. It was in the little things like choosing not to answer his text messages. Walking through the grocery store without that sinking feeling in her stomach. Learning to cook for one alone and enjoying it. There was a time she was terrified of being alone. But with more of the abuse, she started craving it. Because in the quietness of being alone, she could finally regain her voice, hear herself again, recover, and eventually become healed emotionally. She actually bought a journal and wrote letters she had never sent. Lilian talked to herself kindly, even if it felt awkward. Some days, she relapsed into sadness. Other days, she surprised herself with rejoicing. This is the part of healing no one talks about. The quiet rebuilding. Where the scars begin to soften. Where the tears start to feel like rain, not storms. Where you're not waiting to be saved anymore because you're learning to save yourself. Lilian stopped asking, "Why did he do that to me?" Rather, she started asking, "Why did I stay so long?" Not to blame herself, but to understand. Because it's by understanding that she stopped the cycle of abuse, and that's how she started healing. When survivors begin rebuilding, the focus shifts. From him to her. From pain to purpose. From survival to life. Lilian had emotional detachment. She learned to unhook herself from emotional guilt. And with self-compassion, she offered herself the kindness she always gave away. Emotional protection doesn't just come from keeping others at a distance. It comes from turning inward and learning to speak gently to the self. Lilian was so good at forgiving others, even when they didn't say sorry. But when it came to herself, she was ruthless, calling herself stupid, weak, and naive. Until one day, she looked at a photo of her younger self. She didn't need shame. She needed shelter. So she gave it to her, with her own words. Self-compassion is not indulgent, it's survival. It's the steady, loving voice that whispers, "You did what you had to do to make it through. And you don't have to carry that shame anymore." And then there's emotional detachment. Not coldness. Not indifference. But a sacred separation from guilt that isn't yours to hold, when from pain that was never your fault. Lilian stopped picking up emotional crumbs. She stopped trying to fix what she didn't break. And in that space, Lilian found peace. This is the essence of emotional protection. Choosing yourself again and again until it no longer feels like rebellion, but rather like coming home. With a new light and new love, Lilian cautiously opens her heart again, but this time, with emotional boundaries and a new sense of self-worth. Lilian didn't plan to fall in love again. Honestly, she didn't even plan to let anyone close. But healing doesn't mean locking the heart away forever. It means choosing wisely. It means knowing your worth so deeply that you no longer settle for being almost or partially loved. His name was Elias. He had kind eyes and gentle voice. He asked before touching her hand. He listened when she paused mid-sentence. He waited, not impatiently, but respectfully. At first, Lilian flinched at kindness. Not because it hurt, but because she didn't trust it. She kept waiting for the shift, for the storm, for the punishment. But it never came. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't walk away when she cried. Didn't make her boundaries feel like insults. True love doesn't heal all wounds, but it honors them. It keeps space for the parts of you still learning to breathe freely. One night, Lilian told him everything. Not to dump trauma on him, but because she needed him to see the blueprint of her heart. And he didn't try to fix her. He just said, "I'm here for you as long as it is safe for you to let me be." That's what survivors deserve. Not a hero. Not a savior. But a witness. Someone who sees you and still stays gently. For final reflection, here's practical emotional protection tools for you. In this story, you have seen Lilian walk through heartbreak, awakening, rebuilding, and rebirth. But her story is more than fiction, it's a reflection of real life, real healing, and real hope. Emotional protection isn't just a concept. It's a practice. It's a daily act of courage. Here are the tools every survivor can carry with them, no matter where they are on their journey. 1. Know your emotional boundaries. Ask yourself regularly, what behavior crosses the line for me? You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your heart. You have the right to say no, or to walk away, or to pause. 2. Check your inner voice. Is your self-talk kind or cruel? Replace blame with curiosity. For example, "Why am I triggered?" becomes more helpful than "What's wrong with me?" Write affirmations that reflect your truth, for example, "I am allowed to protect myself. I am useful to myself and to humanity. I am blessed and highly favored. I am blessed to be a blessing." 3. Identify emotional triggers. Healing isn't about avoiding pain, it's about understanding it. Pay attention to what feels heavy in your body. That's your nervous system saying, "I've been here before." You're not weak for being triggered. You are human. 4. Create a circle of safety. Emotional protection also means choosing safe people. Keep company with those who don't punish your feelings or weaponize your past. One loyal listener is more powerful than a room full of critics or accusers. 5. Practice emotional detachment. This doesn't mean becoming cold. It means letting go of what you cannot control. Someone's anger isn't always about you. Release the need to fix others. It's not your job to bleed so they can heal. 6. Ground yourself daily. Study. Pray. Breathe. Journal. Walk in silence. Do something every day that reminds you that you are safe now. Emotional protection isn't one grand act, it is a series of small choices and actions. To all survivors, your healing doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. You've carried enough. Now, let this be the season where you carry only what honors your spirit. You deserve peace. You deserve kindness. You deserve softness. You deserve to feel safe inside and out. This is how survivors can protect themselves emotionally. Thank you for listening and thank you for healing. Do give us a like, then also share if someone needs to hear this. If you have an encouraging word for others, put it in the comment section. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell for more contents from Emotional-Dramars. Thank you for your support.